Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MEA board meeting for Thursday, November 7th. Looks like we have a good crew on hand this evening. And we also have a very packed agenda, so a lot of interesting items that we'll be hearing about and discussing this evening. Before we get started, though, I wanted to start on a little bit more of a somber note. As I believe everyone knows, the MEA family, our family, because we really are one, lost a member and a friend this morning. Barbara George passed away this morning, surrounded by friends. I'm going to ask for a moment of silence, but I wanted to just talk for a brief moment about Barbara, what she meant to the organization, and invite anyone else who would like to publicly remember Barbara to do so. Put simply, she literally was our key volunteer from day one when this was simply an idea, and then all the way through to the present time. Barbara attended every meeting. She wholeheartedly was voted in as our first volunteer of the year a couple of years ago. As you all know, just an amazing source of information on the various and oftentimes complex issues that we deal with. And beyond MEA, she really, in the energy field, actually was noted for her work. She is a bit legendary, I think, at the PUC, where she headed up Women's Energy Matters and weighed in on the important energy issues of the day. And beyond that, Barbara was just really a great human being. She took the time to get to know us, always was very interesting to speak with, never pulled any punches, and I think we all like that about her. So we're going to miss her. So why don't we start the meeting with a moment of silence, and then if anyone else would like to speak as well. Thank you. So Dawn?
Yeah, I would just like to say for the folks that may not know that in addition to Barbara founding the Women's Energy Matters and being the director of that organization, she was also really one of the early supporters of CCA before it was even being explored in Marin County. And she created a video that was being circulated back around 2003, 2004 on what CCA could be in Marin. She also worked tirelessly for the past 12 years as an intervener at the CPUC, pushing for renewable energy and energy efficiency. She frequently served as a stakeholder in and a liaison to a lot of different advocacy groups, including the Sierra Club and many of the sustainable organizations around Marin on matters of energy and CPUC activity. And so she will be greatly missed.
Leslie, I think you wanted to.
Seems so formal. I got hired by Charles Washington in January of 2006, who said, "You're going to work on this community choice thing I'm working on." I had no idea what that was, and this young woman came to me and said, "I really, really need to talk to you." And her name was Rebecca Collins, and she was earnest, and she was passionate, and she talked really fast, and she was very intense. And I thought, oh God, this is just a lot of information coming at me. And that same week, this other woman who was elegant and gray-haired and mature and calm and quiet and really intense, she just passed me in the hallway and said, I really need to talk to you. And I said, okay. Like, well, what about? And she said, well, I know that you're working on community choice aggregation, and I think there's a few things you need to know. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot I need to know. And so I said, well, if you have a minute, let's go to the conference room and just kind of give me a download. And so we walked into the Board of Supervisors conference room, and sat down and the lights weren't on, and I thought, well, this will be, you know, maybe half an hour, she'll give me some time. And I think we were there for 3 hours. She talked, and I listened, and I thought, oh my God, this woman is so smart, so passionate, so engaged, and such an inspiration. And she you know, as those of you who got to work with her know, she didn't always say what we wanted to hear. She didn't always say to the PUC what they wanted to hear, but she was on point, on target. She pushed us. She inspired us. She made us a better agency. She pushed us to really focus on energy efficiency when what we were talking about was all this other energy stuff. And that made us better. And she showed up, and she showed up, and she showed up. And one of the things that I think this little engine that could, this little David and Goliath and Marin Energy Authority, we didn't give up. Barbara never gave up. She never took no for an answer. She really never took no for an answer. And that's something, that persistence, that dedication, and that believing in the outcome and not quitting is one of those legacies that we, you know, as this agency grows, and we bring in new board members who weren't there in those days, we just kind of keep wanting to pass on this institutional memory and this history, because we lose these people. We lose Charles, we lose Dick Collins, we lose people like Barbara. We're losing a little piece of the history. So I just want you to hear that. There's persistence. We have a long way still to go. We're doing great as this little engine still. And we've grown, and it's extraordinary. You guys are amazing. But it's people like Barbara, and Rebecca Collins, and Hal Brown, and Charles McClashen, and you guys who were there at the very beginning, who pushed this. And you guys here need to remember that and keep pushing it, because that's what's going to make this thing actually work, not just for Marin and the city of Richmond, but it's got to go bigger, because as you probably are aware, we've got this climate change thing happening, the global warming thing happening, and it's getting worse, and the statistics are looking worse. Even though climate change and greenhouse gas reductions are happening, we're hitting our targets here in California, we're not going to get there by 2050, and we can't just do it by what MEA is doing. So I just want to encourage all of you, energy efficiency, what Barbara really pushed. She knocked down nuclear energy in the state of California. She was just extraordinary. So that's one of those legacies that we all get to carry with us as we continue to do this work.
Thanks for sharing that. Kiki.
Good evening, board. I'm standing here as a friend and a colleague of Barbara George. We took advantage of an opportunity to visit her this afternoon, and I kept expecting her to hold forth about something. I first got the measure of Barbara's dedication and intensity around marine clean energy and CCA when the Sustainables decided that we were going to persuade our San Rafael City Council that it really was okay and there really was public support for marine clean energy. So I designed a postcard and a door hanger that said, basically gave the benefits of marine clean energy, and the postcard was a tear-off that people could fill out their name and address. And yes, I support marine clean energy and I would like to have that, or no, I'm happy with PG&E, I want to keep it exactly as it is. And Damon will remember that one day we came in and delivered a whole boatload of postcards of people who were supporting marine clean energy. But the way we got those postcards is Barbara George organized precinct lists. And we got the Sustainables to meet at a coffee shop in Montecito, and Barbara got a bunch of kids from Oakland to come and walk precincts with us and talk to folks about marine clean energy. And I thought, man, this woman really knows how to do this. Another measure I took of Barbara George was in the early days when there was kind of a brain trust of folks like me who would meet with Charles in the Rogue Room. And Barbara was one of those people, and there were a few other advocates. And at that time, we were working closely with Spirit Club. And after one of those meetings, I happened to still be in the room, and Barbara was just red in the face and really haranguing Charles about the necessity of marine clean energy coming out of the box with an energy efficiency program. And she was so passionate about it. Once again, I was stunned by her knowledge and her capacity to embrace an entire range of issues and to really have the conviction to speak truth to power. And Charles did his best to calm her down, and the idea was we needed to get launched first, and then we could do the next step. And there was peace. But there's another part of Barbara, and Leslie touched on it for just a moment, and it had to do with her passion about nuclear energy. And I took yet another measure of Barbara when she told me about her having created a one-woman show where she dressed up as, I don't know what she dressed up as. She showed me a little brochure. And she would go around and do this one-woman show about how important it was that we ban nukes and how terrible it was for the future of the planet and our generations that we would have nukes generating energy. I don't want to take more time, but I just want to say that deep respect and honor for Barbara George, and she and I, there were no short conversations with Barbara, either on the phone or in person, but I have deep honor for her and her work and her memory, and I learned a lot from her, and we were in Traces together at the very beginning, and so happy that we're all here tonight to remember her. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori.
I was with Barbara 3 times as she was dying. I'm really glad I could help her to be comfortable and get her into that home she was in for a while. But what I really wanted to say here is that as the first private citizen to give an unsecured loan to Marine Clean Energy when PG&E was about to crush it, I was so guided by her, and she took me every step into this complex political, sort of history of all these relationships with people and everything, and it was very confusing. And I wasn't even sure I knew the difference between a watt and a volt, and just all these things. And I'm really happy that she shepherded me in, and that I arranged the thing with Charles, and we got, Effie in, and Steve Berg. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful to Barbara, and I thanked her, and as she was dying, and I looked at her eyes, I said, "Thank you, Barbara. You've helped me do one of the most important things I've ever done in my life. Thank you." I hope it was one of my best accomplishments so far.
Thank you, Lori. It means a lot. Stan.
Hello, give everybody a namaste and greetings. And I was also with Barbara several times in the last little while, and I just wanted everybody just to take a deep breath and feel Barbara for a moment. She was in this room so much, more than anyone else I can think of, and sending her off to the light, free light energy. And no batteries required. And so I was with her at the CPUC for helping to stop the nuclear stuff. And she was really, really upset at the nuclear in Fukushima, and that's why she supported you guys so much, because you're making such a difference with clean energy. We talked about this, why she was so passionate to helping you, because it was the answer to stopping this nuclear. And just last month, one of the largest renewable energy things opened in the Mojave Desert. So it's happening. We're making it happen. And a year ago, I was really concerned about her health care, where I, student of medicine, in which she had no money, no funds for health care of any kind, and I was quite concerned about her being really stressed over this in Fukushima. And so for Barbara, her last wish to me, I went down to the CPUC on Friday and asked the CPUC to pay her the $116,000 for the year and a half that she worked for us, doing the things to help marine clean energy, helping to stop nuclear energy efficiency. I need your help. The CPUC still hasn't paid her. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to go down there and I want to fire PV. He's a public servant, isn't he? Can I fire him? We'll talk after offline, but man, oh man, I'm going to carry on what Barbara's wishes were to stop the nuclear, supporting you guys. Thanks. Namaste.
Thank you, Stan. Well, thank you, everyone. David, okay.
Yumi was the caregiver, when Barbara passed. And standing in the room with Yumi this afternoon, she said all through the night, Barbara kept kind of going, no, no, no. Wasn't conscious, but she just wasn't going. And being at that home and sharing the love that Barbara was being given by such wonderful and diverse people, such an extraordinary embrace of their African Americans, her closest friends, and beautiful Japanese people. There's lovely people in the neighborhood, and the little kids running down, and this is down in West Oakland, and old anti-nuclear friends coming in. And so it was an expression of what our values really are and how she lived. And her spirit was very much still there. Her body was gone. She could feel her, and she was still around. And there was such a sense of that. But the commitment to turn your back on technologies that are going to be our demise was so committed to that. Make sure all the resources that we have are used so well. So I challenge you on the staff to really understand the depth that she understood about what energy conservation truly is. And I think that if we can act in that, we honor her in a way that would make her smile. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And we really appreciate everyone's sentiments. Barbara's spirit is here with us. So in that light, we'll get started with the meeting. Item 1, board announcements. Item 2, public open time on matters not on the agenda. Doesn't look like we have any this evening. We'll move to item 3, report from Executive Officer Don.
Great. I just have 2 items this evening. I wanted to thank the folks that were able to participate in our CAISO tour that happened on October 10th. It was a big success. We had one of our board members, Sloan Bailey, participated. Thank you for coming along and joining many of our staff who were there. It was a very informative tour and presentation, and maybe we'll do that again if folks are interested. Let us know. It's very helpful. Wanted to let folks know there's a conference coming up next week in Chicago on CCA, and they're going to be participants from many parts of the country where CCA enabling legislation exists, and in some communities where it doesn't yet exist, but there's interest in getting CCAs going, and there's a high level of participation in the conference, so we're really excited about that, and we'll be bringing back information from other CCAs after we participate in that. And the last thing is I just wanted to make sure folks save the date for the annual holiday party coming up for Clean Energy. It's going to be on December 20th this year, which is a Friday, at the Falkirk Center, which is the same location we had it last year in San Rafael. And that is it for my report.
Great. Any questions for Don? Okay, item 4 is the consent calendar. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review that.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries. Item 5, policy 008, accounts receivable reserve policy.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Goodwin. I'm the Internal Operations Coordinator. I'm going to make this short and sweet. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to review this. It's pretty straightforward from the board packet you received. I am going to go through it in a little detail, but because we did review this at XCOM in October, and it's a fairly straightforward policy, basically formalizing what we're already doing, I'm not going to read through the staff report. Okay? So basically, we work with Noble Energy Solutions to collect customer data information as well as they do our accounts receivable. They've been working closely with the Mahers, our accountants, over the course of the last several years since we launched in 2010 to monitor uncollectible accounts. And they've monitored it very closely over the last few years. The significance of bringing this policy for tonight's vote is basically after our second major enrollment period, we have really good customer data, historical data that we can make some pretty accurate calls on in terms of percentages of uncollectible accounts moving forward. Back in July 2012, we enrolled a very significant part of MEA's customer portfolio from Marin County, the remaining part of Marin County. So as of July of this year, we have a historical look back at a year's worth of data. And so, again, keeping in mind that a year from our Richmond rollout, which will be July of next year, we'll have, again, a sort of really solid set of data to look at and be able to kind of revisit our policy, which we're going to review tonight, which is basically allowing for Noble to always go back and collect for uncollectible accounts, but as far as our books are concerned, for the Mahers moving forward, we will revisit sort of the trends of customers who are not paying. And right now it's set at about a 5 to 1% part of our revenue for as far as our budget's concerned. What the Mahers and Noble wants to do collectively is essentially say, like they've been doing, formalizing a policy of continuing to look at this historical data, no less than twice a year. Make sure that it matches with the reserve that we have in place in our budget and adjust accordingly. And so really, what you have in front of you right now, John, do you want to add anything? What I was going to just mention is that we can walk through, literally read the policy. It's self-explanatory, but just so you kind of understand, again, this is not new information. It's just formalizing it for you tonight. So we'll look for probably some adjustments made in the year to come. So essentially for you tonight for vote is to adopt policy 008, and that is to estimate and record reserve for uncollectible accounts. In order to accurately report accounts receivable, net assets, and earnings, management will estimate the rate of collection of amounts billed to customers by evaluating and monitoring historical rates of collection of amount billed to customers. Consideration shall be given to changes in the mix of customers, commercial or residential, demographics, or other factors that might influence changes from historical rates. So keep that in mind as we perhaps consider expansion. The last part says, as changes in historical rates of collection are identified, management will adjust estimated reserve amount and report uncollectible accounts, to align with most recent data. Staff will review historical data no less than twice annually and evaluate any changes that may be needed to the estimated reserve amount and reported uncollectible amounts. So I'm happy to take questions. We have given this considerable thought, like I said, XCOM knows that. So, audience, I know you guys are teeming with questions. Feel free to jump in. Put me on the spot.
I have a question because I'm very poor at math and finance, so I figure if you can answer my question, it'll probably help other people who are in the same boat, not necessarily those who sit on this dais. Is what the idea is I mean, the sort of the first idea is we buy energy and sell energy, and all the people to whom we sell energy don't necessarily pay. And there's an aggregate pot that's developed from the people who don't pay, which is something that we have to carry. So the purpose of this policy is to identify and quantify those things for financial planning purposes?
Those have already been quantified and monitored since inception. The idea tonight is to put forth a policy based on strong historical data, based on our last two major enrollments, and eventually begin to write off some of those accounts that are past 120 days and even more so of not paying. Right now, we haven't done that. We've recorded reserves to ensure that that's managed in the budget.
That's covered.
Yeah, so this is sort of a first formalized phase in establishing a policy. We've been operating that way as we haven't written it off, but this is kind of a prep for that process.
Yeah, I think you characterized it really well, Director Green. I think that the main thing that is changing now is that it's really a write-off policy. It's how much annually are we going to write off?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And one component of that is, keep in mind, we're always reserving with Noble the ability to collect on an account. So that part will not change.
Right.
This is for the purpose of our books.
Great, thanks for the explanation. Any further questions for Emily?
I have a couple.
Yes, Lance.
Hey, Emily, if a customer doesn't pay, what happens to them at some point? Do they get sent back to PG&E?
Yes, they do, and I'm going to ask for some. Eventually, I'm going to ask for some assistance here, just to make sure the process is spot on. And by assistance, I mean passing it off to Dawn.
Yeah. So when a customer is delinquent in their payments, we do flag the account after 90 days, and we send a letter to the customer letting them know that they need to pay the amount due within a 45-day period. We actually give them a little longer than that. If payment still doesn't come in after a 60-day period, we do transition them back to PG&E.
That's a nice word, transition.
And as Emily said, if payment does come in even after they've been transitioned to PG&E, the payment can still be applied to our outstanding amount, because payments that come in always go to first charges first. So even if there's an old charge on the books and customers transitioned out of our service, we can still get that payment in. And that's why it's been a little bit complex to determine what is the right timing to write off an amount, because it can be a very long time lag before a payment may come in. So this policy will help sort of keep the books clean going forward.
And Mr. Chair, I have a second question.
Yes.
That word write-off always kind of rankles me, since we're not a for-profit, so we're not really getting to write anything off. Perhaps a better word would be a loss. It's income that we were anticipating, we just didn't receive it because the customer or the ratepayer didn't pay it. What procedures or policies in place to work with Noble that there's some effort to actually work on collections for the accounts?
We actually have a contract with a collection company that takes care of that for us. So that's not Noble's function.
Any other questions? Audience? This burning oven. Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That matter carries. Okay, item 6 is a very important issue, the updated integrated resource plan. It should be an interesting discussion. John, kicking us off.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, this is a great item to cover because I think it, really articulates what MEA is trying to do in very practical terms. So, about this time last year, the board adopted the first formal integrated resource plan for the agency, and so this is an update to that for the most part. But what the integrated resource plan does is it has a number of different purposes, but fundamentally it lays out the policies in regards to resource procurement and development that MEA has established. And it also quantifies targets, so it quantifies how much load, how many customers we plan to serve over the next 10-year period, and then translates the goals and objectives into specific resource targets, and articulates preferences among those resources. And then the plan itself then acts as a guide to program management to go, when it's day-to-day management of the program, to go out and procure the resources that are consistent with the resource plan. So it's a very important document to really establish the policies that that this organization uses in supplying the types of energy to its customers. So in terms of, I mentioned that this is an update to the plan. The process is to update this plan annually at this time. It really fits in well with MEA's procurement cycle. So the primary sort of procurement tool that MEA uses, there's a number of them, but the main one is the open season process, which happens in the springtime. And so when but before we go out to the market and tell the market, what we're looking for in terms of proposals through the open season process, we need to go through this planning exercise to figure out what it is that we want, right? So that's really one of the fundamental purposes of the resource plan. And so we do it at this time of year, and then that feeds into the spring open season process. The changes, the main changes this year, some of them are just changing some numbers around. Now that the expansion into Richmond has taken place, we have more accurate information on customer participation and projections going forward. We have new energy efficiency programs, and so we're reflecting those goals and the program design parameters in the plan. We have actually new and better data on net energy metering. There's a lot more actually local photovoltaic production in the county than we anticipated last year, so we've updated for that. That's good news. And then on the resource side, we look at, through this resource plan, we look at what our needs are and also what we have under contract, and we identify, okay, what's open, what do we need to procure. We've taken the opportunity to update some of our existing contracts. Through the 2013 open season process, if you recall, the board adopted a contract with Calpine for power from the geysers, geothermal facilities. So that's now reflected as a contracted resource. We have a couple of contracts that have changed. One's been terminated. That's the Rio Solar contract. That agreement was terminated several months ago, so that's now taken out of the plan. And we have some changes to the start dates for some of our new renewable generation projects. That one has been delayed and one has been accelerated. So we have a delay in the Cottonwood project by several months, and then we have an acceleration of the current Kansas project into 2015. So we're update for those types of things and get a more accurate picture of what we need going forward. In terms of the key policies, so I think one of the fundamental sort of purposes for this agency being is to reduce greenhouse gas. That's one of the elements of the mission statement, reduce greenhouse gases, and increase utilization of renewable energy. So that's a key policy that governs the plan and governs our procurement. Maintain competitive electric rates. That's clearly is a policy that's been established from the beginning. And control energy costs going forward. Stabilize power supply costs for MCE customers. Another policy is to benefit the local economy through new programs that are developed, energy efficiency programs, new renewable infrastructure, which we support through things like the programs like the feed-in tariff. And increasingly what's increasingly an emphasis is in helping customers reduce their energy. All the work that Becky does, and when you see the numbers in the plan, you'll see that becomes a very significant part of the resource mix going forward. And then finally, all of these things really help just improve the overall reliability of the grid by reducing demand, increasing supply. So that's another policy that's been established and that continues to be reflected in the plan. So in terms of just some of the key highlights, we have, of course, for the light green product, we have the 50% renewable content, so we need to make sure that we procure the resources to be able to supply that. So we've got a minimum 50% renewable energy standard that we apply, and then we have a long-term goal still of moving towards 100% renewable energy to the extent that we can, to the extent that that is economically feasible, technically feasible. So that's still the vision here, and we actually reflect that in the numbers, progress towards that goal. We're planning for a significant increase in local renewable generation over the next 10 years, a 10 times increase in grid-connected projects through the feed-in tariff. Now, that sounds impressive, but I have to acknowledge that we're starting from 1 megawatt and we want to move to 10 megawatts. But it's not easy. The feed-in tariff offers a very attractive price. We've only got one project in it, and so we're kind of increasing our efforts to get more of these projects, and hitting that 10 megawatts is going to be a challenge. It's going to be no small task. So that's the feed-in tariff. Those are the projects like the Center Villa. That's the one that we have. Those are standalone. They're not behind the meter. On the behind the meter generation, this would be typically rooftop solar. We support that through our net energy metering tariff, and we're planning for a 2.5 times increase in net energy meter customers over the next 10-year planning period. So we're at about a little over 20 megawatts now within Marin County and Richmond, and planning to push that up to 47 megawatts over the next 10 years. The energy efficiency plans are incrementally 1% to 2% per year in savings, and so those compound over time. Go out 10 years, that's it's more than 10% of the resource mix would be met through just reduced demand from energy efficiency programs. And then we also have plans for reducing our peak demands. So energy efficiency typically reduces energy consumption, the customer's monthly usage, but we also want to reduce the peak demand that occurs, because that translates into lower power supply costs for the program. So we have a goal of meeting 5% of our peak capacity needs through demand response programs. Some of those are offered by PG&E, and our MCE customers are eligible for those programs. So some of that will be met through PG&E administered programs. Others, another part of that, we expect to be met through MCE developed programs, which do not yet exist, but we expect will be developed during this planning period. So how does this all come together visually? This is indicative of the resource mix that we expect over the next 10 years. Not all of these resources are under contract, but this is a realistic representation of what we expect to use. And I think the takeaways here are one, the diversity of the mix. We have a large variety of different renewable resources in the portfolio, from solar, biomass, wind, geothermal. We have large hydroelectric power that we use to supplement the renewables so that we hit our GHG emissions targets. We want to stay at or below what the GHG emissions rate is from PG&E, from the alternative, and we primarily do that through renewables and hydroelectric power purchases. And then, we have sort of what's left, which is natural gas / system power purchases. And that's the green piece sort of near the top that's getting squeezed over time. And that's what we're trying to do, is squeeze that down to zero. And we're going to hit that from the top, which is through reduced energy consumption. And hopefully Barbara George would be happy to see this chart because it has a very significant role for energy efficiency going forward, as well as the net energy metering resources. And then also, in terms of the potential renewables, this is a bit aspirational. That piece that's increasing, we don't have specific resources in mind for that. But that's the stretch goal that we're striving towards, is to increase the renewable content at that pace. Okay, so now, so we look at what our load is, we look at our policies, we look at what that translates into resource need, and then we look at what do we have under contract. Finally, what is it that we still need to buy? So currently, MEA has 15 different power purchase contracts with 10 different energy suppliers. So the business is getting more complicated over time. We started off with just a single contract with a single supplier, and now we're diversifying and we'll continue to diversify over time. The conventional, the non-renewable energy needs of the program are largely contracted for through 2017. So there's not a lot to worry about for just energy. There is, and for renewable energy, the bundled renewable energy, that's the so-called bucket 1 and bucket 2, those are largely contracted through 2017 as well, or 2016, excuse me, with the exception of 2014. We now have a short-term need for renewable energy in 2014. The reason for that is the Cottonwood project, which was expected to come online in 2014, will now be coming online in 2015. So we'll have to go out and procure the renewable energy for that period. But other than that, we're pretty well covered for bundled renewable energy. There is a need for the purchases of unbundled renewable energy certificates. This would be bucket 3 in the lingo, starting in 2014 and really beyond that period. So we typically buy unbundled renewable energy certificates on a short-term basis because there's a very active and liquid market and really an abundance of supply. So it's been advantageous to take that more of a year at a time. So, but those purchases will be necessary in order to hit the overall renewable targets for 2014. And we also have a need for additional carbon neutral energy. So this is not necessarily renewable, but and really what it means from a practical point of view is hydroelectric. So we'll have to buy more hydroelectric power in 2014 in order to hit the overall GHG emissions target that's been established for the program. And then lastly, capacity. This is resource adequacy capacity, which is a product that MEA needs to purchase to meet regulatory requirements. We're largely covered through about mid-2015, but we'll start looking next year in 2014 to start putting in contracts in place for 2015 and beyond. We'll have to, those obligations are made on a year-ahead basis, so by the end of 2014 we'll have to have contracts for the entirety of the 2015 year. There's also a new requirement that's been adopted for flexible capacity, and I think the board has been briefed on that initiative. But the idea there is that as more and more renewables come onto the system, there's and intermittent renewables at that, there's a need to ensure there's enough flexible capacity, whether it's hydro or natural gas, to be able to fill in when those resources don't produce. So all load serving entities, including MEA, needs to have a certain amount of flexible resources under contract. That obligation kicks in 2015. So that's what we need to buy, and how are we going to do that? The methods are I mentioned the open season process. That's typically what we use for longer-term new renewable projects. We also just use brokers and bilaterally traded markets for shorter-term energy needs, and particularly products where there's actively traded markets, so there's a lot of price transparency. And those are the main procurement methods that are spelled out in the plan and that staff is authorized to engage in. And then, of course, we have our feed-in tariff, which is another way that MEA procures resources for small local renewable projects. So with that, any questions on that material?
So maybe I can start off. All right. Just a few areas, John, thank you for the presentation. And the plan is really looking good. 2014 procurement, if you could talk a little bit more about what's the strategy to make up the anticipated shortfall, because obviously that's right around the corner.
Yeah, that's right. And so I can say, discussions are underway for that 2014 renewable need. I don't know, too early really, I think, to sort of get into the specifics of that, but I think we're pretty close on being able to bring something back to the board in the next couple of months. It doesn't have to be done by the end of this year, just to be clear.
Okay. So kind of a bilateral opportunity.
That's correct.
That's correct. Yeah. Right. 2015 non-renewable goals, and I know we've been talking off and on about strategy on that. Like if you could go into that a little bit more, how do you see that playing out?
So say that again. The
2015 non-renewable.
So for carbon-free, so what we have is a need for carbon-free, so that would be hydroelectric purchases. In 2015, we have a need for capacity. Okay. But for just kind of plain vanilla non-renewable, we really don't have a need until 2017.
Okay, I'm assuming it's right about that. Third item is feed-in tariff implementation. I'm glad that's highlighted in the plan. And as you commented this evening, we need to increase our efforts. I really would like to underscore that. I think that is a key part of the strategy for local renewable projects. So if you can talk a little bit more about how you see that strategy going forward.
Yeah, so probably I'm not the best to address that. Maybe you or Greg.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. We have a couple of processes underway to try and encourage more participation in the feed-in tariff program. We're developing a kind of an FAQ, frequently asked questions list, that we'll be using to share with decision makers and stakeholders. We think that document will also be useful to developers and local landowners that might be interested in the feed-in tariff program and want to know more about it. I think increasing the level of information in the venues where permitting decisions are made will be very helpful. So that document is being created with that in mind. There's actually a nice brainstorming meeting this week, which Kirby was a part of, and Rafael was a part of, and Bob Spofford participated in. Thank you, Bob, for being part of that. But we're starting to develop some of those frequently asked questions. We're also making a few revisions to the feed-in tariff itself that we'll be proposing at the TechCom level, probably within the next month or so, that are just minor adjustments that we think clarify a few things. We don't think that that's going to create any fundamental changes in the process, but might allow for a little more hand-holding through the process for our local landowners and developers. So those are all efforts that are underway. I think also reaching out to our mayors and council members, our city manager meetings that happen once the FAQ has been developed. We'll be circulating that in real time through some presentations to help make sure that our decision makers are well informed about the need for these local projects and the importance of getting them through the permit process where possible.
Well, it's great to hear. I think, it's really important to be interactive with the market on this, kind of, are there ways we can explain it better or engage, potential participants more, that sort of thing. So, good to hear that's underway. Final point that was also mentioned in the plan is demand response, with the notation that we do not have kind of a formal plan on that yet you see it as a big part of the future. If you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of the more interesting opportunities there would be in sending price signals directly from the California Independent System Operator. And when we had the tour of their facility talked a bit about this whole need for flexible resources. That's really driven by the assumption that demand is it is what it is, it's static, and that what has to happen is supply has to react, right? So if we can kind of flip that a bit and have demand also be responsive to what's happening in the market, then you don't need as many flexible resources on the supply side. So that's been something that in MEA's comments through this process we've emphasized. And so there's an opportunity there, especially as technology becomes more available to automate customer responses in response to price signals coming across. I think that's a real opportunity for MEA to add value. The trick in demand response is that there's a lot of programs already out there that PG&E runs pretty well and our customers benefit from. So it's trying to find where's the gap in the market where we can really add value, and I think that in particular is one that we're looking at and would like to develop a program to be able to offer that.
It's also worth mentioning we've been selected to be part of a small demand response pilot that we're going to be working on that over the next 6 to 9 months, and it'll involve working through a third party to bid some demand response reductions into CAISO. And it'll be interesting for us to see how that process goes. I think it'll be a good learning experience for us and some of the customers that could benefit from that type of program.
Further questions? Yes, Larry.
Just in regard to the carbon neutral part of it, I was looking at the water district's plan. They're going to, at least they want to build a large water storage facility at Five Corners. And part of that plan is that the water would then be transferred down to, I think, Phoenix. And in doing that, that pipe could actually be a hydroelectric generating facility. It would have a little micro turbine in it. And the plan that they put out indicates I think they may be working with PG&E, but I think they're a member of MEA, so I'm just wondering whether staff's aware of that and whether we are getting our foot in the door on that, because it seems like there may be a lot of potential hydropower just in capturing the power going through their pipes as they transfer water from elevation to elevation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been in touch with MMWD for many years about pump storage, and we actually worked with them to develop a grant proposal on a couple of different projects that would work with the series of lakes that they have and pumping water from one to the other during off-peak hours, running it downhill during on-peak hours. We think there's some opportunity there. We haven't been in discussions with them in the last few months about this particular project. I hadn't heard about the Five Corners project, so I'll definitely follow up and find out more about that.
Tom.
You mentioned 2 or 3 times, and I see it in a couple of the diagrams here about large hydro. And could you elaborate on that a little bit? I've always been under the impression that large hydro is not eligible for counting as renewable energy.
That's correct. It's not. So what we use large hydro, and what we've used to date are purchases from the Tridam facility, Danelle's, that the resource owner is the South San Joaquin Irrigation District. And so we don't use it, it's not a qualifying renewable resource, but we have our renewable targets, we also have just an overall GHG-free target. And so it does qualify for our own GHG-free targets. That's what we use the large hydro.
So, like the light green program that's 50%, I think I read in here somewhere that you're actually 51% renewable, then the large hydro's on top of that?
Yeah, so that's the other piece, the other 50%. We want to make sure that's as clean as it can be as well, and so that's where the large hydro.
Well, is there anywhere where you, where you chart that out and show that, you fulfilled your 50% with renewables, qualified renewables, and then above that, how much currently and projected in the future is actually renewable but not qualified renewables? I mean, what would it be? Would that get you up to, if you counted that, would that get you up to 60 or 70 or 80%?
Right, so I think, this chart I think answers that question.
Which page are you looking at?
Well,
Slide 6.
The staff on the plan itself or on the PowerPoint?
Which one are you looking at?
Well, I'm looking at the PowerPoint presentation, so this one right here.
Page 6, right?
Yeah, so essentially then, everything up until we get to the natural gas system wedge, the green wedge up at the top, that's either renewable or carbon-free. Right? So we're starting off, a little bit over 50%, and when we add the hydro in, I forget the number exactly.
Can you draw a line across there to show where 50% is?
Okay.
Where would it be?
Well, it would be roughly at 700, so.
Right along there?
Yeah. Top of our.
It'd be about 700?
Yeah.
700 is up above large hydro, so that's not right.
No,
I'm talking about
700 would be right about here, right? In that range?
Yeah, but where would you draw a line that shows the 50% renewable? Where would that be? Would that be right below large hydro?
Okay, so let's just look at 2013. Our renewables are up to this line here.
Okay.
Right, so we have a load of 1,150 or so.
So that line would be the line between the brown large hydro and the blue geothermal?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, so the line's going to go up if we're measuring at 50% of our load. The load's going up a bit, right? So as we're going to have a full year of Richmond customers, so that line's going to go up, but it'll start around here and kind of move up there.
So right now you've got your 50% takes you up to the bottom of large hydro, and then if you add that in, that's about maybe what, 10% or something like that.
Something like that.
And then the rest of it right now is natural gas.
Or just unspecified purchases.
It's unspecified, but the mix you draw from is predominantly natural gas.
That's right.
Okay. So, but you don't have any control over that, right? Or do you? How much of that do you have control over?
The unspecified? I mean, it's.
Yeah.
No, we don't really, I mean, it's unspecified, so it's a purchase it's essentially a purchase through the KISO market. They don't tell you where it came from.
Do you have control over the large hydro?
Yes.
That's a contract purchase.
That's a contract with a specific resource. That's right.
So everything then above the brown large hydro line is purchased from ISO out of the
pool.
Whatever mix they've got. And you don't have control over it. So, right?
That's correct.
Unless you wanted to, I guess you could buy, just like you buy a large hydro, I guess you could buy gas or something else, right?
Yes.
Okay. You have the discretion to do that, but you don't.
The current contracts do not specify the resource, but we certainly could. With the contract, we'd say we're going to buy from this particular natural gas facility, for instance.
Okay.
So I think what you're driving at is is carbon-free is 60%.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
About, yes.
So John, I have just a general question. You show the energy use all the way out to 2022 as a sort of a flat line. And I mean, with all due respect to energy efficiency programs, you don't, just with the economy growing at a GDP rate, you'd have more energy use in the marketplace as the economy grew. You can even see the automobile industry changing quite rapidly now with electrification of vehicles. And is it possible that there should be more, we should think about procuring even more energy out for that longer period of time?
Yeah, so, you know, we actually talked about that quite a bit because there are factors that, you know, typically, despite energy efficiency, you know, iPhones and whatnot, you know, households will use more energy. We also have, though, customers can leave the program at any time, and we do have customers that do leave the program, so that there's some factors that are going to go the other way. So, you know, there's no certainty with these load forecasts going out. I mean, we're much more certain about our load for 2014 than, you know, clearly we are for 2022. So we thought, you know, a flat base forecast was reasonable considering the, you know, the probability that customer loads tend to increase, but we could also be losing customers. The other thing, you know, to keep in mind is we may be adding new members, which is going to completely change the line. Right? That'd be a much more significant impact than anything that we're talking about.
Okay. I just think we should maybe factor in a little bit of increase just with the GDP growth that occurs, you know, over the next 8 years. A few percentage points for sure.
I'd add one comment too. Even though California's population has more than doubled in the last 20 years, and our actual energy consumption has been pretty flat per capita. So it's actually a pretty fair representation of what the California market is.
Actually, John, in reality, you're showing if you achieve the efficiencies in the top purple wedge, you're actually forecasting decline in actual energy sold.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I have a basic question. Can you tell me what those units mean, GWH? That's
gigawatt hours. So
I'm sorry?
Familiar with megawatt hours?
Sure.
This is thousands of megawatt hours.
Thousands of megawatt.
Gigawatt
hours. Okay.
And there's terrible.
And then, okay, so that's helpful because, you know, we're talking like a number 800 or 1,000, but I wanted to really understand what it meant. So for purposes of being able to explain this chart to people that aren't energy wonks or attend MEA meetings so that they would understand what this means. You know, to try to explain this is how much energy that MEA needs in a year. So it looks like if 2013, I'm at, what, 1,100? Is that about right?
Yep. 2013, yeah, we're about 1,150, I think.
Something like that. Okay, so just break it down for me so what that means in terms of that's for 120,000 ratepayers and how many people, and then is that the idea?
Yeah. So you know, 2013 is a little odd because we only have half a year of Richmond in there, right? So I think if we look at 2014, that would be our estimate of the annual energy requirements associated with 125,000 customers that are currently enrolled. So that's more like 1,200 plus, yeah.
Okay.
Gigawatt hours.
Gigawatt hours, okay, and 1 megawatt is enough power for how many houses or how many people?
What is the equation there? 1 megawatt equates to, each house is like
200
kilowatts.
200 houses, 300 houses?
Yeah, 300 or so.
Okay. Just want people to be able to understand that. And then there's a little teeny sliver, I don't know if I can see it right. It looks like purple right above small hydro that's just disappeared. What is that?
That's small hydro.
Above the small hydro green, there's a little sliver of purple in
Yeah,
there.
so that label on the small hydro is actually associated with that little sliver. It's very hard to get.
Green is wind.
the label into that small space. So the green is wind, as Emily was saying.
The big bar is
Oh,
wind.
I see, I'm sorry. Okay, that's small hydro, okay, got it. Okay, okay, thank you.
That blue above the small hydro is our geothermal, short-term geothermal contract.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Any other questions? Members of the public, yes, come on up.
This year's Sonoma County with the Rate Advisory I was just asking about that load being flat at the top and whether you're looking at EV or electrification of transportation at all as being something to project some increase, because although there's efficiency kind of balancing out growth, the average growth that we've had in the past, and people leaving the program, I would think electrification of transportation might be something that, seeing what kind of rates we've had in the region recently on that growth and what kind of impacts you might foresee for that. Just wondering about your thinking around that.
I think that's something that we'll be factoring in as we get more information, more market information about how that's going to impact electricity use. At this point, I don't think we have quite enough information, but I expect by next year we may know whether there's some adjustments we need to make to that. Do you want to add anything on that?
No, just, this is one of the reasons we refresh this every year. When we're procuring, we're really primarily looking at the next few years with the understanding that the out years, there's a lot more uncertainty there. And, so each year we get better information. And as the program goes on, we get more insight as to our sales, our customer, how, whether our customer base is going to grow, whether our customer base is going to decline. So, I wouldn't, put too much emphasis on the out years on any kind of a forecast like this, because I can tell you it's going to be wrong. But we're pretty confident that our forecast for next year is going to be pretty good, and that's just the nature of the exercise. So, a lot of factors, a lot of factors could argue for increasing, decreasing, and so just take some of those numbers with a grain of salt. I think would be the best advice there.
Further questions or discussion? Okay, this is an action item. Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
To accept the report or the plan?
And I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Opposed? That matter carries. Good job, you guys, and good discussion. Okay, as item 7, we're going to take something out of order, namely
Actually, excuse me, we're actually going to cancel that plan, so we can go back to the regular agenda.
All right.
Thank you.
On behalf of my many guests this evening.
Okay. So we're going to go with item 7, energy efficiency update.
Thank you. Sorry to Jamie in particular. It would have made a lot of sense for the flow of this. I've been getting a lot of help from Jamie recently. Just to get started, there's a lot happening with the energy efficiency program right now. Some of that stuff will be covered under Jamie's update related to the communications that we've been working on, and some of that will also be covered under Beth's update for regulatory. So if it seems as though I'm missing some big things, don't worry. There's more exciting stuff to come in the realm of EE updates. But to start things off, I just wanted to give an update on some of the activities in our multifamily and small commercial program in particular, and also talk about some of the activities in the financing program, and then give a brief contract discussion preview, which should be a good segue for some of the next items on the agenda. So for the multifamily program update, I thought it would be fun this month to do something slightly different and look a little more specifically at one of the projects that's actually going on right now. In our pipeline right now, we have about 12 projects representing over 1,000 units, but one of those projects just started work this week. So I thought it would be fun to show some pictures and talk a little bit about what's actually happening on the property. This project is actually a homeowners association property in Marin. It represents 248 units, but a lot of those are individually owned. We're working with the homeowners association, with the board, and with a number of individual homeowners to schedule upgrades on site. The Homeowners Association actually covers the cost of hot water for the entire facility, so that's been a really good opportunity for us to work with them to upgrade their boiler system to a more efficient unit, so that's part of the major scope. In addition from that, we're coordinating with some of the individual units to replace some individual water heaters that exist on site. It's been a really interesting process for us because as opposed to working with one specific person for the entire property, we're actually working with more of a committee of individuals. The board has been extremely supportive in helping to get the word out to the different homeowners and to see if there's an appetite to step on board and do some efficiency upgrades. In addition to the major boiler replacements and individual water heaters, there's also direct installation work going on site that actually started this week. As a refresher, the direct installation includes CFL bulbs, shower heads, and pipe wrap installation in units. We have some pictures here that I wanted to share of some of the very highly trained workers from Marine City Community Development Corporation who are on site doing the pipe wrap installation. In addition, I also wanted to mention that this project continues to be another great example of our collaboration with other local agencies. The Marin Municipal Water District, in this case, is working with us to replace a lot of the toilets that are in these units to make sure that they're getting rid of the old, higher capacity toilet gallons and replacing them with lower capacity for some significant water savings on this site. To give you an idea of what that collaboration looks like, generally when we go on site to perform an energy assessment, we've also coordinated with Marin Municipal to collect information that they would need to know if the property is a good candidate for some of their conservation programs. As a result of that collaboration, we can provide more funding to the program and have more resources available to them. Here's an example of what the building can look like. What we have here is one of the individually owned water heaters. And what you can particularly, what I'd like to draw your attention to, oops, I do that every meeting. I don't know how many months. So this section right here is actually where the hot water is leaving the hot water heating system and is going back into the main facilities. And when you have exposed copper piping like that, one of the problems is that copper is a really great conductor, so it actually releases a lot of waste heat into the atmosphere and ruins the efficiencies of the unit, or damages the efficiencies of the unit. So what we've been doing is actually wrapping those copper pipes with some additional insulation to keep the heat and have efficiencies across the whole system. So it matters not just in upgrading the boiler, but also doing your pipe wrap installation. And by the way, homeowners, this is something you can do on your own property this weekend if you want. We can use some 3-day weekends. Very low cost measure. One of the things that I have been mentioning both at the TechCom and at the board level is that we have seen that there may be a need to make some revisions to our incentive structure. Partially we found this because through the first initial programs that we did, we achieved about 25% of our savings with only 10% of our incentive budget spent. So we felt that there would be some opportunity to move around there. Another thing that we found is that the launch of the Bay Area Regional Energy Network program, which offers a $750 flat incentive if property owners can achieve a 10% comprehensive reduction, has a lot of property managers wondering how our program compares against that. And why their program has a much higher threshold of entry with that entire 10% reduction, you need to do a very comprehensive on-site energy assessment. At the same time, their incentive is extremely easy to communicate. Property owners really understand quickly and easily what's in it for them. So in addition to increasing all of our incentives just a little bit, which I included the table to show you what that looks like, really that table is not intended to be something we publish and communicate. It's hard to understand. Not a lot of people really grasp what it means to have a 10-year payback, nonetheless what it means to have a higher incentive for that. So we added on top of those base incentives some additional bonus incentives. These are twofold. On the one hand, it helps property owners quickly understand what's in it for them if they want to participate in the program. And for another thing, we've crafted these incentives in a way to sort of motivate the kind of behaviors that we would like to see from people participating in the program. For example, in a lot of cases for market rate properties where it's not a subsidized property, but it's where market rate rental prices, the property owner doesn't have a lot of incentive to allow us access to tenant units. And in some cases, they don't want to bother tenants by offering something like a free light bulb upgrade. So we're adding a $25 per unit receiving direct install incentive to create an incentive for the property owner to really open the doors for us where possible and provide some benefit for the tenants in the property as well as the property owner. On top of that, we're offering an additional $50 per unit from a unit that benefits from an in-unit measure. So this isn't the free direct install measures, but this would include something like an appliance upgrade, windows insulation. If the tenant units have individual heating, that would be something that would also qualify. And this is really designed to encourage property owners to invest where they wouldn't see the economic benefit from that investment, because often it is the tenant who's paying for the energy savings or paying for the energy costs in those units. So that's the design there. And then on top of that, trying to create more incentive where possible for property owners to invest in more than just 1 or 2 measures, but really to invest as much as they can in the property. We're adding a 15% bonus on the base incentives for anyone who invests in more than 3 measures. The quick and easy way that we can communicate this is to say that for most properties, this is anywhere from 20 to 60% off the cost of the project, and is capped at 70% off the cost of the project. And that doesn't actually include the bonus incentives as well. So we're working on updating fact sheets so we can communicate this. We've actually had a pretty good success rate in terms of properties that we provided assessments for that went forward with work. But we see this as a good opportunity to reach out to the 2 properties that have fallen through the process so far and haven't pursued their work after receiving an energy audit. And we also see this as an opportunity to do a new media launch, communicate the availability of these higher incentives, and possibly also get some traction with our financing program by really co-marketing the 2 of those side by side. A quick update on the multifamily program. So far we've spent about $123,000. As a reminder, we have $860,000 overall in the program. We've achieved about 45,000 kilowatt hour savings, 8 kilowatts, 3,000 therms. And this is across 2 completed projects. In the pipeline, we have 12 projects representing 19 sites. And one thing that I am extremely excited to mention is that tomorrow we have a Richmond Build class graduating that we have supported as well. If anyone's interested in attending, the Richmond Build graduation ceremony will be from 10 to 12 tomorrow, and I've been told that they're preparing a certificate to present to us for our support for their program. So we're very, very pleased with that as well. Continuing along the vein of trying to present some real stories for our program, wanted to talk a little bit about the small commercial program. One thing that was a bit of new news is that there is a campaign kicking off in Sausalito. This is something that was actually motivated from some of the folks at PG&E, who, as you may remember, are jointly implementing this program with us. They had a really keen interest in diving in, and so the Sausalito campaign is kicked off this week. So far, the campaign has been very successful in convincing folks to go through with the energy audit. They accomplished something like 11 or 12 audits in their first day on Tuesday. I haven't gotten an update from Wednesday, but those are very high numbers for initially going out and seeing the building. So for whatever reason, Sausalito has been a very friendly community to the energy audits. In addition to that, we concluded our saturation campaign in Richmond. Richmond is a little different than Marin because it is not just the Marin County that's involved in the program, it's also the entire East Bay community. Rather than doing a jointly implemented program, we did a jointly implemented saturation campaign. So since August, we've been on the ground in Richmond, knocking on doors and offering audits. And as a result of that, we touched almost 400 businesses. That means businesses where they were able to go inside and communicate with the property owners. And from that, they achieved 85 audits. And the projects are still coming in the door and getting finalized, so I don't have a final number for that yet, but I will at the next board meeting. One exciting story that we have from Richmond is one of our staff members, is Alex here? Alex was actually on site at Catahoula Coffee having a conversation with Timber about deep green participation, when lo and behold, in comes smart lights to perform the work. So we actually got to snap a picture of Timber, who's pretty much smiling. He seems pretty happy with his energy installation, and the gentleman from Smart Lights who was there to do the install. And the good success story that we have about this project, although I don't have final numbers right in front of me, what we've heard so far is that the savings that they'll be achieving from their energy efficiency update more than offset the additional cost of opting up to the Deep Green program. So that's certainly something that we would also like to market and make other folks aware of. That is a really, there's a lot of co-benefits to doing those two together. The small commercial program, again, is another place where we thought it would be good to do an incentive redesign. Across the board, we increased the incentive slightly from 12 cents to kilowatt hour to 14 cents per kilowatt hour, which can actually make a fairly big difference when you're on site. And at least until the end of this year, we've added a 19% kilowatt hour additional bonus if someone chooses to do LED technology. What we're finding is that a lot of CFL technology has already saturated the market, and additionally, with code increases coming in 2014, those savings will no longer be able to be counted for the CPUC regulations. So there's a lot of motivation to push people to move in the direction of LED. However, unfortunately, LED has not yet come down in cost enough to be comparable to the kind of boom opportunities we saw in the CFL market. Thus, we're offering a higher incentive for folks who do move in the direction of LED to help offset that additional cost. It was a bit esoteric, so sorry about that. What we're also doing in the small commercial program is trying to, again, motivate participation in the whole building aspect of the program, encouraging property owners to invest in deeper measures. And the way that we've done that is we've developed a 3-tier bonus incentive: bronze, silver, and gold. There are categories including lighting, HVAC, which is heating and ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, food service technologies, and building envelope technologies. And there's a menu of technologies in each of those categories. And if a business owner chooses one measure from 3 different buckets, then we'll give them a $200 kicker to their program. If they do 2 HVAC, which tend to be the longer payoff measures, and 1 from any other, they get $450. And then if they do 1 from each of the different categories, they qualify as gold, and they get a $750 bonus on top of their project. One other thing that we thought would be really interesting to try, we've encountered an issue with whole building where a lot of times when we visit a commercial site and walk in the door, the decision maker isn't available. We're usually dealing with someone who is either working the counter, they're more in a customer representation and customer interaction than really a decision maker for the building or for the operations and maintenance. So what we're trying to do is actually reach out to property owners and managers. And what we're hoping to offer is a bonus incentive to property managers or property owners if they refer someone to the program and that person actually completes an audit. And that way we'll add to the project that they had. So we're really trying to leverage the word of mouth opportunities that have proven very valuable to us and get in at the property manager, property owner level, which is where the decision makers generally are. So we're hoping that this will enable us to actually accomplish more whole building projects as well. Initial program results for small commercial, we spent about $147,000 in this program. 72,000 kilowatt hour savings, 11 kilowatts, and in this case we actually have no therm savings to report just yet, though I do know that there are a couple of whole building projects going through the pipeline. Thus far, 28 projects have been completed, although again, as I mentioned, there are more that are coming from the Richmond campaign that we don't have the numbers for yet. We've touched over 1,000 businesses for outreach and provided 227 audits for that program. The last but not least program update that I'm really excited to talk about is our financing program. We were able to get a lot of press attention in this month, and Jamie will be talking more about that, but almost immediately as a result of that, our phones started ringing just about right away. As a result, we have 2 applications already in the door for the single family program. We've learned a lot about how we can improve the communication of our program from those brave first applicants, so that's something that we continue to work on as well. One thing I'm also extremely excited to report out on is that we've had a significant breakthrough in our ongoing discussions with PG&E for our on-bill financing program, and at this point it looks as though we will be able to extend our financing program to non-MCE customers. The timeline at this point is uncertain. We're still in ongoing negotiations. At this point, Energy Division of the CPUC is also very engaged in those conversations, which has been very positive. And we're looking forward to having some more details, hopefully as soon as December, including a timeline for rolling the program out to non-MCE customers. And then finally, another thing, I'm just really excited about financing program. I'm going to say it again. I'm excited to say that we are also exploring renewable energy financing options. First Community Bank is actually engaging their board in discussions today, they did, to see if they're interested in stepping up and providing a renewable energy financing option, which we could provide on bill. It would be an unsubsidized option to all customer classes, but it would be an additional add-on that we could offer to customers and potentially combine with the energy efficiency projects as well. So those are exploratory discussions at this point, and something that I'm also hoping I can report back some concrete details in December.
So that is on bill?
It would be on bill. According to the program parameters of the CPUC, there's no restriction against placing those charges on the bill. The only restriction is that we can't subsidize that financing with energy efficiency dollars. So that has been the limitation there. With that, I wanted to just provide a quick update of the 3 contracts that we have coming before you soon. Association for Energy Affordability, who's been our primary technical assistance provider on the multifamily program, will be coming tonight for $106,000 continuation of their role in our program. Community Energy Services Corporation, who is our lead program implementer for the small commercial program, for $200,000 to continue to provide the technical assistance, program implementation, post-installation verification, and the small commercial program implementation. And then Marin City Community Development Corporation, who's done just such an exemplary job stepping up to provide the direct install services, is also on the agenda tonight for a $50,000 contract. And with that, I would love to answer any questions you might have about that material or other easy questions.
What do we get, Denise and then Tom?
I'm a good report, as usual. The multi-family program is the one I'm kind of interested in because there are some certain things that seem to be that they're benefiting from, like the major boiler replacements and items like that. It normally would be in a budget for a homeowners association. So it sounds to me, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're benefiting, the people are benefiting. There's like an unintended good consequence as well, that these people may not see an increased assessment based on, you know, big purchases, you know, that would be affected because of this program. And so who's participating financially? The homeowners association and or the individual owners?
I think in this case it's a combination of the both. I haven't talked with the property owners in detail about their specific financial contributions to this case, but as I understand it, in most of these cases, folks pay a homeowner association fee to maintain some of those ongoing expenses, and I would speculate that that's where the majority of the costs for the HOA-owned equipment are coming from.
Right.
And then on top of that, we are also seeking specific individual homeowners who have contributions.
So it would depend on whether it's like a capital improvement for the whole building or whether it's an individual expense per unit.
Right, and there are a little of both involved in this project. There are both individual expenditures on behalf of homeowners and there are HOA-associated expenditures. And you're probably right. My guess is that it would be part of a capital improvement program.
Right. So, I mean, to me, there may be some good communication, you know, possibilities too about, you know, how it's really benefiting a homeowners association to have this because it affects the assessments that cost the owners.
That's a great point. And something that I had not expected from working with the homeowners association, and maybe this reflects on the character of Marin, is that this particular board and this particular homeowners association has been just such champions for the project and really forward-thinking, really, they get the idea of going green, and it's been a real pleasure to work with some folks like that. And really, they've helped to sort of champion the project for the individual homeowners in the property as well.
Is there a way you could tell us what the...
You know, I hadn't checked with them about actually sharing the name of the property tonight, so I'm going to err on the side of being cautious, but I think that they are like, would love to have the kind of attention for their work. So I will come back in December with that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Tom.
I have a vague recollection, and I asked you about this once before, and if I did, I apologize. But as these programs get ramped up, it would be really helpful for me, and I think for other people, if you would select, for each program, maybe just select a case study and provide enough information so somebody can really get a feel about how it happens. I mean, you've kind of started doing this with this slide on the multifamily update, but what's not in here is how much energy was saved, how much money was saved, how much out of the MCE program did we pay for it? Were there matching funds for somebody else? Did the homeowner association, did they put in some kind of a match? You know, some of those figures so that you can really feel it. In the same way, you know, you're talking about 2 applications already in for a single family program. Well, when one of these actually comes online, it'd be really helpful if you could have an example where you can really see, you know, the details about how the program works and sort of follow it all the way through so people can relate to it. I think these, these summaries about how many people and where and, that kind of thing, I realize maybe that's all you have right now, but it all kind of goes over my head. It's like, what does this mean? And so maybe, did I ask you about that before?
I think you may have, and we are actually in the process of developing a
maybe
case
you don't
study.
have the information to do it.
Case study idea is a great one. Yeah. I think you had mentioned that, and I think we saw a start on that tonight, but maybe even more.
So we're close to finished with the case study that we've been working on for a couple months. We're actually using Lens Property because it's the first one of all of them that's come far enough through the process that we actually have an idea of the results. One of the things that we encounter is that we have a lot of estimates about what the savings are going to be, but those don't always jive with the reality of the savings.
Well, that's okay. You give it your best shot.
So one of the unfortunate things that held us up in the case of Lens case study is that we're working with Portfolio Manager, which is a federal tool, to track energy savings information and look at the historical case versus the current one. Yeah. And the government shutdown actually happened right when we were getting utility bill information entered, so we had to wait for the government shutdown to conclude before we could move forward with that. But it is absolutely a great suggestion. It's something that we're pursuing with all of our programs. So I hope to have something concrete in front of you very soon.
Question. Yeah. The case study that you have for the 248 unit HOA, which pricing schedule do they get? They get the original one or they get the new incentives?
They get the original one. It's based on the date that they submitted their application to us.
Because you can understand some customers, wouldn't be me in particular, but I go and do this program here and all of a sudden I get new pricing and it's like going to Nordstrom's and all of a sudden the tie costs a lot less. I'm not happy.
It's certainly an understandable circumstance. And I think, what we're hoping we can do is reach out to some customers who might have more opportunity on their property, who could even benefit still from the additional incentives.
Buy more, I see.
Upsell you.
Smart.
Have we set specific goals for each of these programs, and are we on track to reach them?
Yeah, we have, and I'm sorry that I don't have those included, and I should. For our multifamily program, I would say that we're on track, especially in terms of kilowatt hour and therm savings and the number of programs that we have in our pipeline. For our small commercial program, we're a little concerned about that. And if you look at the update from last month, I talked a lot about some of the changes in code that are having an impact on that. There have been just some significant changes in the way that they have done business historically relative to how we're doing it now. So that really is a big, significant driver behind the incentive redesign issue, is that we're finding that not only do we have to get more people than we thought we might have had to, but we have to really do a good job convincing those people to go deeper than they have been. So it's something that we're working hard on. We're putting a lot more money into outreach, a lot more effort into outreach, trying to redesign the incentives, really upsell the availability of the financing program, and we're hopeful that those will have some impacts soon. One thing that I should also mention, although that's coming up, I think, a little bit later, is that the Public Utilities Commission is actually in the process of doing something called a Goals and Potential Study. Every now and then, they take a look at what the demand is going to be over the next 10 to 15 years. They try and estimate how much potential there is for savings in the marketplace. And because of these very significant code changes that have taken place, particularly that will be coming online in 2014, I think that there will be a recognition in the kinds of goals and savings that they're projecting moving forward, that there may have been some overestimation in some of these sectors that have historically had very high savings opportunities, primarily because of lighting technology. So.
Okay. Further questions or discussion? Okay. Thanks, Becky. So items 8, 9, and 10, you briefly referenced. Discussion of a series of third agreements related to the energy efficiency program.
Yes, and there's actually no PowerPoint for this. So I'm going to share some relevant portions of staff reports for you. So the first agreement that is on the agenda for tonight is the third agreement with the Association for Energy Affordability. Just again, for a little bit of context, Association for Energy Affordability, or AEA, has been our program partner on the multifamily program from the start. The first contract that we brought was on October 4th for an initial small starter contract to help get our 2012 program up and running. On February 7th, we brought a second contract, which was the same amount, $106,000, to really give them a robust role in the implementation of the multifamily program. AEA provides an instrumental role for us. They are technical consultants. They are the ones on site delivering the energy audit, interfacing with the customer on site. They also develop the audit reports. They help explain the audit reports to the customer and help the customer make decisions about what scope they want to pursue. They have services available to help bid solicitation if that's something that the customer is interested in. If not, one of the things that they do provide that has been very valuable to us is the development of minimum performance requirements. A lot of times we find that multifamily property owners have a network of contractors that they work with already, and they prefer to continue to work with those folks. So rather than tell them you have to work with this contractor or that to do our program, what we do is we provide oversight for the process. And AEA has been the one fulfilling that role. So they not only help say this is the level of technology that needs to be installed, and this is how it should be installed, but they come in after the project was installed and they provide a post-installation verification. And that's at the point at which we feel comfortable releasing the memo.
Becky, what kind of feedback have you gotten from contractors who have been overseen? Because I would imagine that's probably a sensitive area. And so what's the feedback been?
You know, that's an interesting question. I haven't directly received any feedback from those contractors, which isn't that surprising given that I'm sort of in the stick role in this circumstance. But one of the contractors that we did work with, actually on Len's property, has helped to refer us to other possible opportunities and has actually served as sort of a liaison for us in the future. So
that's good feedback.
In at least that circumstance, I think that was very positive. We are careful to not make a statement about the quality of the contractor in particular, but we speak very specifically to whether or not their installation services met the minimum performance requirements, which we actually ask them to sign a document saying, yes, I understand these minimum performance requirements and will install according to these specifications. So we try to keep it as neutral as possible, but I can understand that for some that may be an uncomfortable relationship.
Or not. It's
or
just
not.
Since it's a sensitive area, it's one, I think that, and an important area, it's one to be able to tread the right way in so that we don't unnecessarily alienate a sector of the business community, contractors, that fundamentally we have an intimate relationship with and that we need. So our overseer, we would want not only to be able to have the quality control sufficient, but the bedside manner not alienated.
One thing that I also really want to underscore is that we are just getting a tremendous value out of the folks at Association for Energy Affordability. They're a nonprofit organization. They've been working on multifamily buildings for decades. They literally wrote the book on the Building Performance Institute standards for multifamily, which are the preeminent standards that are used for multifamily energy efficiency projects. And they have been a tremendous partner for us. So I have no hesitation in bringing forward the recommendation that we continue to support their role in this program. The recommendation tonight is to approve a third agreement for $106,000 for Association of Energy Affordability. It would continue to support them in the role of technical consultant, serving to deliver the energy audits and reports, interface with the property owners, and provide that post-installation verification for the work. And again, I would recommend that this agreement be approved. Are there any questions?
Yeah, do we want to take these one at a time in terms of your presentation?
Yes, and I also would be remiss to not allow Andy, who has graciously come this evening, to step up and at least wave and say hello, because if you have any questions about AEA, he's available to answer them.
I am, and thank you very much. I'm not going to ask you about that. He's done a great job of describing what our role is, and the program's been rolling out very smoothly. We feel great about the way that it's been going. So rather than taking any time to plug, I'll just address that one very astute comment that you made, which is the contractor relationship for us. That's something that we've been in managing contractor, that bedside manner is something that we've developed over 20 years, and it is critical, you're right, very much so, to effective implementation of any scope of work. And we have great relationships with hundreds of contractors, and we view them very much as our partners, and we treat them very much as our partners. So rather than coming in with a dominant hand saying, you didn't do this right, you didn't do this right, we work very much in tandem with them, and it is a delicate balance, and it is critical to the success. So thanks for pointing that out. So we're looking forward, hopefully, to continuing our relationship. It's been great working with MCE. One of the kind of, we've done a lot of programs for a lot of different utilities and local governments, and one of the great things about working with Becky and her team is the nimbleness with which they are able to move and make decisions and then act on those decisions. Becky's able to take our feedback and turn that into action almost as fast as she can talk.
Right out of my mouth.
I deserve that.
That's a good thing. That's a bonus.
And that's fast.
Okay, so any further discussion on item 8? Okay, that's an action item for approval.
So move the staff report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Okay, next is Community Energy Services Corp.
Yes, Community Energy Services Corporation. Again, an organization that I can say without hesitation that we're receiving tremendous value out of. Community Energy Services Corporation has been delivering small commercial specific energy efficiency programs in the community for many years. They have a lot of experience in Marin. They really understand the Marin community, and they also are very close and familiar with the community of Richmond, being that they're also based out of East Bay. We first started working with Community Energy Services Corporation actually on the scope of our multifamily program in November 1st of 2012. This board approved the first agreement that we had with them. At that time, their emphasis was specifically working on lighting assessments and helping us to estimate the savings associated with the lighting upgrades for multifamily properties. We quickly saw the value of this organization. In addition to that, we saw that they were a real presence, an existing presence in the marketplace, and had a lot of opportunities and networks that we could leverage by choosing to work with them. On March 7th, this board approved the second agreement with Community Energy Services Corporation, which really cemented their role as the primary program administrator for our small commercial program. Smart Lights is the program that is offered through Community Energy Services Corporation, and it has served as a turnkey program for us. They handle soup to nuts aspects of program implementation. They go out and find customers for us and work on customer intake. They provide energy audits on site. They don't actually do the installations, but they work with the third party, with a network of contractors who have agreed to abide by program terms, have agreed to have someone come look over their shoulder to make sure the installation is done correctly, and in some cases have also agreed to work with workforce trainee graduates. They also, as I mentioned, come back in at the end of the project and provide installation verification and really handle the customer relationship and program management aspect of this. We've had a great relationship working with Smart Lights. They've proven a strong willingness to troubleshoot and to help really look into the program, find out what's working and what isn't working, and help make us recommendations for moving forward. Their insight has been instrumental in redesigning the incentive structure, and they have also been really helpful in continuing to brainstorm and to enact different ways to try new program outreach mechanisms through stepping up to provide presentations, even though that wasn't originally contemplated as part of their scope. They have been very active in reaching out to organizations such as the Richmond Chamber of Commerce, 23rd Street Association, and et cetera, to make sure that property owners are knowledgeable and aware of the offerings that we have. I should also mention that the small commercial program has been jointly implemented with PG&E. This has been a benefit to the customer ultimately, so that they don't have multiple program administrators knocking on their door offering them different program offerings. In this case, we have established a relationship with PG&E where we've agreed to basically share all of the basic projects that come in, which include things like lighting and refrigeration, but whole building projects come completely to Marin Clean Energy because that's the value add that we're really providing to this program. The County of Marin and the City of Richmond staff have been very engaged in this program as well. They've been instrumental. They have walked the streets along with Smart Lights to help get people engaged in the program, and Smart Lights has been very good about working alongside those folks as well. The requested contract amount we're bringing before you is $200,000. It represents 5% of the total energy efficiency budget and about 14% of the small commercial program budget. This is slightly more than what was requested in the second agreement, but I would also like to point out that the second agreement ran from March of last year until December of this year, where now we're seeking a full year worth of contract services. And also, again, Martin Bond from Smart Lights has agreed to make himself available to answer any questions that you may have about his organization or about the program. So at that point, I would love to open up if there are any questions or if you have any additional thoughts.
Any questions on this side? Martin, would you like to add?
There's a question.
Okay.
Just a small point. I see that in the jurisdiction and value part of the contract, it just says Marin, it doesn't say Richmond.
Oh, that's a good point.
Omission.
So this is our boilerplate contract language, and there may need to be some changes to this, so that's a good catch. This one.
I just want to say thank you. It's been great working with Marin Clean Energy. We've been working with Marin since 2009. And it's great to have such a community support for this outreach, particularly around energy efficiency. It's something that a lot of folks in Marin and the city of Richmond really care a lot about. So it's been great, and looking forward to another year.
Great, thanks. Entertain a motion on this side.
I'll move to approve the third agreement between MEA and the Community Energy Services Corporation.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That matter carries. Okay, next one, item 10, third agreement with Marin City Community Development Corporation.
Martin and Andy, can you guys plug your ears real fast? We saved the best for last tonight. As much as I am thrilled with all of the vendors we have working on our programs equally, the contract with Marin City Community Development Corporation has really blown me away. We first approached the folks at Marin City in really the end of last year, seeking someone to provide the direct installation services for our contract. We didn't have a clear front runner in mind for that, and thought it might be an interesting opportunity for Marin City, who really serves as a workforce intermediary and a workforce training organization, to potentially step up and see if there's interest in providing this role. Not only did they step up, they really blew us away with the quality of services that they provided. We've never had a hesitation or doubt at all with sending their teams in to perform the work, and we've been consistently impressed with the high quality of work that they provided to us. It's just been a real pleasure, a real opportunity for us to work side by side with their organization on this. Just for a little bit of history again, the first agreement came before this board on October 4th of 2012. We came back with the second agreement on February 7th of 2013, which really cemented the relationship and put them in the position and support of providing this role for us. They have been able to not only provide a trained workforce, they have identified additional training when it's necessary, have provided that training in conjunction with the Association for Energy Affordability. They've done a great job identifying the supplies that would be needed on site, securing those, storing them on site on our behalf, and then also making sure that there are sufficient folks working on site when we need them to. They have been in the position of interacting with the tenants when we actually do these direct installations, so it's really important to us that they maintain a professional manner and that they have a good relationship with those tenants. And again, I've had no reason to complain at all about the work that they've done here. Thus far, the crew at MCCDC has provided these direct installation services to over 600 units, and actually since the time I wrote the staff report, they've been out at the additional project this week, adding another couple hundred to that repertoire. This agreement would continue the support that they have in providing those crews. It would provide the flexibility for them to identify and implement any additional training that would be necessary to bring those crews up to speed, and just in general would maintain our ongoing relationship with this high-quality organization. The contract, there is one small change that I would like to recommend for this contract. The proposal is for this agreement to begin December 1st, but in working with our accountants today, I've identified that it would actually be safest if it was implemented as of this evening, so that we can be sure that there's funding available for the work that they're doing right now on site. And so that would be the one small change that I would recommend. We also have Liz Darby here from MCCDC, who's acting interim executive director. And I don't know if you want to say anything. I know kind of getting thrown into this as well.
Thank you again, and thank you for considering us. And I will tell you, we have had a wonderful working relationship, and I'm looking forward to that continuing in the next year. The impact that it has had on the community and individuals and the training that they've received so that they really can utilize those skills to empower themselves to get more jobs has been immense. And I just wanted to read something to you. I got this email from MCE saying it's the happy 1-year anniversary to Loan Pledges, and that was sort of one of the first times one of our clients actually became involved with your organization, and he has subsequently moved on to work on some of the training programs that we had in the direct installs. So I sent him an email. I said, "Can you believe it's already been a year?" And his response was, "Thanks, Liz. It really means a lot to me to have participated in such a major event for my family. Thank you so much for the door you opened for me. I will always be loyal to the CDC program and to the effort you guys put into helping the community take part in the development of our county. Thank you once again." Pretty much think that says it.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Anything further, Becky? Okay, discussion on this item.
I'd move the item, which is the third agreement with the Marin City Community Development Corporation for energy contract services as amended, making it effective forthwith rather than December.
Well said. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That matter carries. Thanks again, Becky. Okay, item 11, solar rebate program, low income distribution.
Great, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So on March 7th, 2013, your board approved a $10,000 budget allocation to provide $2,500 rebates to MCE customers who install solar panels. We subsequently at XCOM kind of further defined that program to include as eligible customers who purchase their solar systems as well as lease or sign a PPA power purchase agreement. We also agreed to set aside half the funds for Richmond, so $5,000 for Richmond customers, $5,000 for Marin customers, and to limit eligibility to residential customers only. We kind of set this program aside for a second while we were exploring group purchasing, the thought that if we were to launch a group purchasing program, we would want to tie the two together. We've set group purchasing now on the back burner for the time being, and so we're ready to launch this program. But while we were doing the research around group purchasing, we realized that there's a real acute need for support specifically for low-income customers for solar installations. So we'd like to offer another provision, which is that we restrict eligibility for these rebates for the first 4 months to low-income customers exclusively, at which time, if there are still rebates available, then we could open them to other customers. As you likely know, low-income households pay a disproportionate amount of their income on utility bills compared to higher income households. The more low-income customers are more likely to face credit barriers when trying to qualify for a solar lease or power purchase agreement. In fact, in Richmond, the prevalence of housing built post-World War II means that it's actually more expensive for a low-income customer to install solar because of the features of their homes, including old roofs and electric service panels. And then the 4-month window is so that we have enough lead time for groups like Grid Alternatives that reach out to low-income customers to help them install solar, for them to get new projects in the pipeline as opposed to just improving the return on investment of existing projects. That's about it. Any questions? Yes.
Do you identify the customers, or the customers come to you? How do you?
That's a great question. So there's a California Solar Initiative has rebates for low-income customers through the SASH and NASH programs. So we would basically just look for whether they had already qualified for those rebates, and that would be sufficient proof of eligibility.
And then you make the outreach as opposed to them contacting you.
So the way that I'm envisioning this working is that we'll work very closely with Grid Alternatives. They're actually the administrator for the SASH program in the state. So, we'll let them know that we're offering these rebates and projects that they're able to develop will come through our door. And then also in the multifamily outreach that we're doing on the energy efficiency side, there's a number of property owners who've expressed interest in installing renewable. We haven't been able to offer them anything for that, so this will also be an opportunity to reach out to them as well.
And you anticipate the full 10,000 will be consumed by this approach?
If it's not, then we could open the doors to other people. I don't think we'd have a hard time.
That's my sense. Yes.
Are you or have you put out some kind of a press release or information on this that I'd like to distribute it in my newsletter if you could.
Pending your approval of this item.
Yeah.
Move the item.
We definitely want to get the
I'll second.
Okay, well, hold that thought. Public, any thoughts on this? Any other discussion? Okay, well, I think we do have a motion in a second. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? That matter carries. Okay, item 12, communications update.
Thank you so much. So I have a brief presentation to go over tonight, and I'm going to start with the usual for the meetings. And our list has gotten so extensive that from now on I'm just going to show you the meetings between our last board meeting where I gave you an update and the current, and also we'll go over the meetings for the next month in case any of you are interested. So our team has been continuing to go out to a variety of community events and meetings, not only in our service area, but also in the Bay Area and beyond. We'll get into a little bit of the beyond stuff in just a minute. And I'd like to thank our board members as well, because it's not just our staff who go out to talk about MCE and CCA, but it's also directors as well. And we love having you at those meetings. So if you're interested in any of them, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the team. We can always give you more information. This is a list of the upcoming meetings that we have between now and December. And you'll see that this month we actually have a few meetings with other communities in the Bay Area for their council meetings. So I've created a slide to talk to you today about MCE expansion and CCA development. So obviously you all know that your board approved expansion of our service area, and we've been really busy responding to a plethora of questions about joining. And so I have just a brief update about what we've been hearing. The County of Napa did submit a letter of interest expressing their desire for the board to potentially consider moving forward with studying whether or not Napa joining would be feasible. So that's something that we'll be discussing at the December board meeting. We've heard from Albany, San Ramon, and Piedmont as well. We've had meetings with their staff and or elected officials already in each of those cities. And they've all scheduled council meetings November 18th, November 26th, and December 2nd to discuss MCE and the potential for joining. Looks like at this point Albany is really the furthest along. They have already created their staff report in which they are recommending that the council submit a letter of interest to our board expressing their desire to join. We've also been in conversations with staff from El Cerrito, San Pablo, Benicia, Oakland, and Dublin. So there have been lots of conversations going on, and I haven't even included any of the conversations that we've had with residents from other cities and towns that are interested in joining. And we do hear a lot from community-based organizations and just residents in the community who have heard about our program and are wanting to know how they could start their own CCA or potentially join ours. I also spent some time a couple of weeks ago in the Central Coast meeting with representatives from San Luis Obispo County, the cities and towns within that county, as well as Santa Barbara County. They're looking to create their own CCA program as well. San Luis Obispo is a little bit further along. You may remember we had a visit a few months back from representatives from Slow Clean Energy. And they are in the process of forming a stakeholder advisory group made up of elected officials, residents, and business leaders to begin the feasibility process. One of the things that we talked about in San Luis Obispo as well, or at least that they wanted to talk about, was the potential for joining MCE maybe a couple of years down the road if it turns out that they don't want to create their own CCA. But it's really exciting to see all of the conversations about CCA going around the Bay Area and California. And as Dawn mentioned earlier, next week we'll be in Chicago with representatives from across the United States to talk about this. So it's great, and I'm sure we'll have a good update from that as well. I wanted to talk to you today about our Deep Green program and some of the marketing that we're doing to increase Deep Green customers. You may remember that I reported out that we've had over a 40% increase in our Deep Green enrollments over the last year, which is huge, so we're really happy about that. Our Deep Green customers make up about 4% of our total electricity load, and we're really working right now to partner with the commercial customers who have signed up for Deep Green. And this is just a selection of some of the commercial customers in our service area who have chosen Deep Green. As a way to incentivize commercial customers to choose Deep Green, we created something called Deep Green Champions, and that's basically the name for a Deep Green commercial customer. And we offer them a variety of green image marketing options if they sign up for Deep Green. So the first thing that we do is we give them our Deep Green logo and allow them to use it on their website and product labels. We have Deep Green businesses already that have them on their storefronts. You'll see them around, but we are also having some Deep Green customers who are using them for things like their invoices. There's a brewery in our service area, and they're in the process of creating coasters, cup coasters with our Deep Green logo on them as well. So it'll be exciting to see that at a local brewery. We've got co-branding opportunities for our Deep Green champions. We do outreach campaigns, our marketing events, and of course our advertising. And I'll show you some examples of these things in just a minute. We also have a website. One of the pages on our website features our Deep Green customers. I should reiterate that, of course, this is optional, so it's only for the customers who want to be featured in any one of these ways. We include them announcements on our social media through our Facebook and our Twitter pages. In our e-newsletter distribution, we can highlight the Deep Green customers, as well as in press releases, and providing them with a certificate of recognition for choosing Deep Green that they can put in their storefront and indicates the greenhouse gas reductions associated with their Deep Green choice. The last thing that we always remind them is that they can use the Deep Green option as a point or points for getting LEED certified. So this here is just a snapshot of our Deep Green Champions webpage, or part of it. You can see that we feature our Deep Green customers through a variety of rotating images when you go to the page. So this is just a sampling of a few of the different businesses that we've got up there. And we're working with more of our Deep Green customers to add to that. These are examples of some of the promotions. You can see our Facebook pages where we're promoting Deep Green customers, some examples of advertisements. And then you'll see that little Google Map thing that we're adding to our website as well. And in addition to just having a list of all the Deep Green customers, we have an interactive map, so you can click on it, and all of the little pinpoints represent Deep Green businesses in the service area. So I'm going to switch now to talk a little bit about energy efficiency marketing and communications. This is just adding on to what Becky was, of course, talking about earlier. So this is a snapshot of our energy efficiency website. We've got lots of information up there for customers to learn more about the programs that we're offering. You also should have seen these EE fact sheets at your seats, and these are about all of our different energy efficiency programs. So the multifamily small commercial, and single family, and each of them also have one side of the page dedicated to the financing program. We're really excited about marketing the Green Loan Program, and this might be the first time that you're hearing it as Green Loan or Green Home Loans, but that's really the financing program where you pay for your upgrade on your utility bill so that there's no upfront cost and no money down. This is just an example of what's up on our website, the different pages that you can find with different information. We have had some earned media for the Green Loan Program, and I know Becky mentioned this earlier, but we had a press release that we distributed a few weeks ago, and we got an article in the Marin IJ, the North Bay Business Journal. The city of Mill Valley announced it in an email blast. Director Butte included it in his e-forum, and we also included it in our own email blast. So as Becky said, we got a lot of good responses from that. We had phone calls and people interested in learning more about the program. So we're going to be continuing to do that.
One thing I forgot to add that I would like to add is that apparently the governor's advisor to the CPUC on energy efficiency picked up our article, forwarded it around to a couple commissioners, the head of the Treasury's office, and a handful of other people to say, look at this great example of what the state could be doing. So that was another, thanks Jamie.
Okay, so in addition to that, we also are, we partnered with First Community Bank. They're the bank that is funding the loans for the single family program, for the Green Home Loan Program as we call it. And they're running an ad campaign through the end of December. It's a print and web ad campaign, and there are ads running in the Marin IJ, the Pacific Sun, and the Marin Scope, all of the different versions of the Marin Scope. And this is a sample of what the ad looks like. So we're hoping to drive more attention to the Green Loan Program through this advertising campaign. We also had an ad about our energy efficiency program that went out in the Contra Costa Marketplace magazine recently, so that was focusing on our Richmond customers. And then I wanted to go over briefly some of the next steps that we'll be taking to further increase enrollment and participation with the energy efficiency program, and that of course is in addition to the case studies that Director Butte recommended, which I think is a great idea. So I was just talking about the First Community Bank ads. We would also like to run an ad campaign that's MCE-led, print and electronic. Informational videos I think would be great for the website, talking about the program. I think it could go hand in hand with the case studies. Something that we could work on is maybe taking videos while we're actually, implementing the energy efficiency upgrades so people can really see what the changes mean. Working with and partnering with local stores to promote the rebates and incentives. So reaching out to places like the Home Depot or Jackson's Hardware in San Rafael and having little placards up next to the equipment that people will be buying that relate to our program, where they could get rebates or incentives for that. Exploring direct mailers for the on-bill repayment program. That's something that First Community Bank is really interested in doing and partnering with us on. And related to that would be leveraging the home utility reports, which are also direct mailers, and advertising the Green Loan Program in that as well. And those go out to single-family homeowners. Customer testimonials and case studies. So actually that was already on there. And then continued meetings, social media, e-newsletters, and earned media as well. One example of that is the second contractor breakfast that we're hosting on November 22nd to educate contractors about the program. That concludes my update. Any questions?
So Jamie, deep green, you're saying it's 4%. I think that's higher than was reflected in the resource plan.
You know what, I rounded up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so good. Let's keep pushing that though, and that includes cities. Cities are always free to kind of reevaluate whether they want to, ramp up the deep green as well. So.
And our cities get the same deep green promotions. They're actually up on our website, the ones that have chosen to go deep green.
Okay, great. Questions for Jamie? How's Richmond going, the outreach?
Great. We've begun to ramp down our efforts in Richmond. All of the opt-out notices have been mailed out, so our direct mail campaign is complete. We're still really busy doing lots of meetings and on-the-ground work with commercial customers and a variety of organizations. The feedback in Richmond has been great. The opt-out rate has been pretty low. It's at about 15%. And I would say, well, generally it's gone really well.
Great. Okay, any further discussion on Jamie's report? All right, thanks, Jamie. Okay, item 13, regulatory update.
Thank you. And even though we've been incredibly busy on the regulatory front, I will keep it short because it is so late in the evening. It has been absolutely unbelievable the amount of activity that's been happening at Public Utilities Commission, and I think we can clearly expect this through the end of the year, so all the way through our January board meeting, you're going to see a lot of action. So some of the things that have been happening, and I'm just going to buzz through these really quickly, even though many of them are very significant. One is on the energy storage front, the proposed decision that we had discussed was adopted that set energy storage targets for all load-serving entities. For CCAs, what this means is 1% of our load by 2020 should be energy storage. So obviously that's included in the integrated resource plan, and we're going to be looking for those resources coming up. After the passage of AB 327, this has impacted significantly the residential rate design rulemaking. One of the important components here is that the investor-owned utilities are going to be submitting interim rate residential changes, and those are expected to be implemented in a decision early next year, around March of next year. So that's coming up very quickly, and it may have an impact on our own rate setting. It might not. It depends on what these proposals exactly look like. But we're going to be watching those very closely.
Do you have any idea how they may look?
Yes. So basically, what's allowed under the legislation is the investor utilities are allowed to charge basically a flat fee for distribution services. So that's going to have a significant impact on the energy metering customers. Also, what the legislation authorizes is a reduction in the number of tiers. So instead of having, currently PG&E has basically a 4-tier system, since tiers 4 and 5 are identical, that could be going down to 2 tiers. And so we'll be taking a look at, in particular, the PG&E application will also look into the other utility applications just to make sure that, for other CCAs that we want to launch, that there isn't anything anti-competitive in there. But I don't expect so. I think it should be reasonably straightforward that we'll be taking a look at it. Demand response, there's new rulemaking that is already well underway. Greg actually presented at one of these workshops at the Public Utilities Commission, so we're going to be quite engaged on that. We are involved in a pilot as well on the demand response front. I don't know if you want to say anything about the...
Just a big topic of conversation is the access to the data we need to administer demand response. That's a very big factor. It's on the line of every commission.
Yeah. So, in other news, on the long-term procurement proceeding front, the outage of songs in Southern California has had a pretty dramatic impact in the Southern California Edison and SDG service territories. And generally, we don't generally engage in Southern California Edison specific proceedings. However, in this case, the investor utilities are proposing that the entirety of the new generation replacement resources receive cost allocation mechanism treatment, which has been a very significant challenge for CCA. And in essence, the investor and utilities want 100% of resources to receive CAM, but they're not taking into consideration that if a new CCA comes online, they're going to be bringing on new generation resources as well. So it's It has been a very challenging proceeding to be in. I don't know if CCA interests are going to be reflected. We are going to be doing briefing and comments on the proposed decision and engaging in that. But I think that overall, our objective is to find a more comprehensive fix regarding cost allocation mechanisms and CCAs. Because really this is tailored to energy service providers, so direct access. And just for a little bit of context there, direct access is a means by which basically commercial customers can receive non-utility generation service. So they opt in to direct access. There's a cap on the amount of direct access there is. And generally those are pretty short-term contracts, 2 or 3 years for ESP contracts. So what that means is many ESPs do not actually build new generation resources to serve that load. And we're in a very different position. So when we are bringing new resources online, our customers shouldn't have to pay a non-bypassable charge for this need to bring on new generation resources. So that's a much longer explanation than I intended. Sorry about that. On the cap and trade front, this is, I would consider to be a very significant victory for us. And a resolution recently was approved, which requires that the outreach and education be undertaken by CCSE. This is the investor-owned utilities wanted to do the outreach and education on our customers' behalf as well. So for our customers and for their customers. We argued that that was not competitively neutral, that IOUs had not taken steps to incorporate our thoughts into the process. It was very minimal outreach. And the commission really took action and said that for 2013, CCSE is going to be implementing education and outreach. And so we find that to be very fair, competitively neutral, and there will be other decisions coming forward in the future which hopefully continue this trend. The next item that I want to bring up is the new energy efficiency rulemaking that just came out. It actually isn't even a rulemaking. It has been posted to the commission website and it's going to be voted on to become a rulemaking next Thursday. But we're already in the depths of reviewing the new rulemaking and taking a look at that. What's proposed is there would be an extension of MEA and all the other administrators' programs beyond the 2013-2014 cycle to include 2015, because starting in 2016, they want to do a pretty dramatic transformation of how portfolios are run. And the idea is, starting in 2016, there would be a rolling portfolio cycle. That would be a 10-year cycle where it would be more of an iterative process for addressing energy efficiency needs as they come up, and it won't be such a choppy, short-term thinking process as it has been to date. So we're really interested in our engagement here, and we'll be keeping you apprised of that once it actually becomes a proceeding. And then the one item that I did want to talk to you about that's just a little bit more at length is the energy efficiency and CCA proposed decision. So how energy efficiency is can be implemented and administered by community choice aggregators. And I want to thank, in particular, Sloan, Director Bailey, for coming to the Public Utilities Commission and meeting with the primary energy advisor to Commissioner Farron. This is a proposed decision that has come out of his office, and so we're very happy to have engagement there. So just to give a big step back, there's 2 different types of energy efficiency programs under the code that CCAs can receive. One is you can either apply to administer energy efficiency programs, so that's serving everybody in our service territory. So that's our current program, is serving everybody in our service territory, regardless of whether they receive generation services from us. And there's also this 381.1 ENF ability to elect to administer programs. And so if you remember back to our program in 2012, we could only serve our MCE customers, and it was a much more limited scope of funds for serving those customers. But it's a good way to sort of get your feet wet and get started in energy efficiency. So that's just a little bit of background for a couple of the items I'm going to be talking about. So first, you know, as you remember, the decision was pretty, you know, hot off the presses last time we met, and we've had a lot more time to evaluate and take a look at, you know, sort of the positives and negatives of that decision. One of the great parts of this is it treats CCAs as administrators of energy efficiency funds, and that hasn't been opposed by anybody, including the investor-owned utilities. This is important because it means that instead of being underneath an IOU umbrella, you know, Becky and her team can really develop independent programs that are very much tailored to our community. So that has been very, that's a very positive step that we're looking at in this proposed decision. Also, there's a lot of flexibility for a CCA's first filing for energy efficiency programs. And the idea here is, you know, CCAs aren't, you know, it's not timed around the energy efficiency cycle when they're going to launch and when they can submit their first energy efficiency application. And especially now with these longer term cycles, you know, a new CCA wouldn't be able to necessarily align with those objectives. So this allows a new CCA to file their first energy efficiency application at any time they want, and it would continue for the remainder of the cycle. And then they would have to sort of fall in line with everybody else for the subsequent cycle. So they give a lot of consideration to CCAs there. And also, there's the idea of allowing for retroactive energy efficiency funding. The idea here is, especially under the Elect to Administer program, it's important to actually have more money at the beginning of your program so you can get up and launched. And by counting energy efficiency funding retroactively, the Commission is able to achieve that. So we think that all three of these items are really positive steps of this decision. So there's a couple of challenges. I'll buzz through these relatively briefly. This first one really relates to the option of a CCA to elect to administer programs for only, you know, the generation customers within its service territory. Currently, the way that these statewide and regional programs are defined as they're excluded from the funds that a CCA can receive. And by excluding, the way that they have defined statewide and regional programs basically means that there's no money left over for CCAs to be able to elect to administer programs. So the current definition excludes CCAs from 86% of the energy efficiency funding, and the proposed definition would make it much worse. So if you remember our first energy efficiency program where we elected to administer, I believe it was a $300,000 program over the course of the year, which is already pretty small when you're taking into consideration that you need to bring on a staffer, you need to get up to speed on the DEER databases and all the E3 calculators, something that Becky suffered through and survived. But we just need to make sure that there's really a viable chance for CCAs to get out of the gate when it comes to energy efficiency. Another item is under the proposed decision, CCAs would only be able to access electricity energy efficiency funds. So there's two types of collections, electric energy efficiency funds and gas energy efficiency funds. And furthermore, that CCAs could only use those electricity funds to fund electricity programs. So keep in mind that we are already serving customers with gas programs as well with therm savings. But basically what this means is the idea of comprehensive retrofits where you would go in and have a one-stop shop with deep retrofits, that isn't feasible under that model. So either you would have to do just the low-hanging fruit of replacing light bulbs, or you could go and try to raise some money through grants or other complicated means in order to have gas programs. So it really creates a significant competitive disadvantage for CCAs. So we brought this up with the Commission as well. Another item is, these are the total resource cost ratios. This is how cost effective are the programs that the CCA should run. And so essentially if you have a 1.0 TRC, it means that you're sort of breaking even from a cost effectiveness standpoint, and the higher the ratio, the more cost effective it is. So currently, as proposed, there are TRC ratios of starting at 1.0 and then going up to 1.25, which is the same as the investor-owned utilities. ME is not opposed to having cost effectiveness criteria for these funds. However, you need to keep in mind that it depends on the entire structure of the energy efficiency program. So if CCA programs have already been, the IOUs have already preempted by taking over certain components of energy efficiency, then what are CCAs left with? So if you are undertaking sort of the broad lighting retrofits, but not the deep retrofits, or that IOUs are able to blend a portfolio of different high and low TRC measures into a single comprehensive pool, but we're left with only deep retrofit measures, there's no way that that's going to be cost effective. So really we're concerned about startup costs and cherry picking, and also the current limitations that are in place that discourage CCAs from overlapping with existing IOU programs. So we proposed several solutions to this. One is to basically have administrative costs exempted from the TRC ratios. Another way is essentially having CCAs have free rein to develop broader portfolios of energy efficiency programs in order to meet these objectives. So we've also been raising that in our comments on the proposed decision. Another issue is that the proposed decision appears to want to apply all past decisions that were tailored for investor-owned utilities regarding energy efficiency to CCAs. And while you do want to have sort of consistency of approaches across your different administrator types, in some cases that simply doesn't work. And one recent example, which we discussed in a recent board meeting, is the incentive dollars that investor-owned utilities receive. So they receive incentive dollars for their shareholders when they meet their energy efficiency targets. And so recently we had stated that, in fact, CCA should also be able to receive incentives. The commission disagreed, so treated us differently. So there's a past precedent for treating CCAs differently for a lot of different reasons. So, what we're asking for is that, decisions need to be tailored for CCAs, or there needs to be this understanding that certain past decisions might not dovetail with that. And if you're going to treat us identically, then treat us identically, and we would like to have, incentive dollars flowing into our communities. So that has been a little bit of a challenge as well. And also what we've been asking for, additionally, the proposed decision in essence said that CCAs don't really need additional protections, that they're doing fine how they're doing. And what we have noticed is there are many opportunities where the commission could intervene with clarification in order to help facilitate the implementation of certain components of the energy efficiency programs. I'm trying to say this in a very nice way, because sometimes you just need somebody to be the referee, and that's what we have asked for as well. Is somebody with authority who can step in and interpret commission decisions, or be able to clarify for us or for the investor-owned utilities what past decisions actually mean, and how to ensure that CCAs are able to efficiently implement their programs that they're administering.
Have you, is this an idea that you want to see happen? I mean, obviously you want to see it happen. What I'm trying to say is it something that you floated with the CPUC yet?
Yes.
And what kind of response have you gotten?
Not great. So we have discussed this in ex parte meetings, and we've also brought this up in comments, because we really do see a distinct need for additional protections for CCAs and additional guidance, often for investor-owned utilities. There are many challenges there. not the least of which is it's very hard to get people hired into the Public Utilities Commission because of budgeting constraints. So without that budget there and without the authority there, you know, the commission is trying to hire a lot of staff in a lot of different areas, and they have largely been shut down. So, you know, our probability for success on this is low, but it may be something that's worthwhile talking with either the governor's office or, you know, legislators as you take a look at the next CPUC budgeting process to see if there's a way to have a little bit more advocacy for CCAs at the commission, both in the realm of energy efficiency, but also in just implementing existing legislation and making some of the reforms that are necessary in order to really bring CCAs into the fold in the regulatory scheme.
I think it's a really great approach to both identify the need and then propose what the solution is that would effectively address that need, whether or not it's going to be satisfied anytime in the near term. In the long term, it may well be. So I just really think, commend you for creativity in seeking to resolve the disparities which CCAs have had to address and continue to overcome from day one.
Yeah, thank you. And then we've also made a couple of different recommendations on more procedural matters at the Public Utilities Commission, but I definitely will not bore you with those. Although I'm interested if you guys want to talk about it. So what we've done so far is we've filed comments and reply comments on the proposed decision. We've had a series of ex parte meetings with commissioners' offices. To date, we have not seen a revision to the proposed decision, but we expect to see revisions to the proposed decision come out, obviously in the next week, as the voting meeting is next Thursday. Originally, the proposed decision was going to be held last Thursday. It was held by Commissioner Peterman's office, and so we were interested to see that they're taking an active interest in this implementation. And so we'll see what kind of revisions might come out, and we'll keep you posted.
Can I also add that Commissioner Peterman's office has the benefit of the incredibly experienced Julie Fitch as the advisor, who was the administrative law judge who oversaw the resolution approving our 2012 program funding and also oversaw the resolution on our 2013-2014 program funding. So she is, and she is the former manager of energy, former director of energy division. So she has an extreme level of expertise and experience on this and is very steeped in CCA issues. So we're very hopeful that that office holding the decision is a positive step. Hopeful. Yes,
so that concludes my regulatory update. If folks have questions.
Questions for Beth? Yes, Lon.
It's not really a question, but I wonder if I might just offer a couple of comments here. I did attend the meeting at the PUC, and it was my sense that they are genuinely engaged and thoughtful about this process in a way that was better than expected, frankly, just from my own experiences. They also, I had the sense that they were genuinely engaged in the idea of trying to be helpful to us, frankly. They want to be fair and at least give the appearance, the words they stated give the appearance of trying to do the right thing here. I will say that each of these concerns were advanced, and we owe an incredible debt of gratitude to our staff here that are superb and presented it. Let me just mention, for the sake of putting it out there in the public, that Beth, I thought that you were well prepared and a zealous advocate, and I was proud that you were out there. Becky, factually knowledgeable, A+ effort in the background. You're passionate, genuine. Dawn, organized to a T, professional and persuasive. You brought a great gravity to the meeting, and I'm persuaded if we get treated well, it will be largely because of the efforts of our people here.
Great, thank you. And again, you're underscoring the importance that board members attending these ex-parte meetings can make a difference as well, along with our great staff. Okay, well, thank you, Beth, as always.
I have one question.
Yes, forward.
Back there in the beginning, you talked about how in the future part of what we were going to have to do is storage. Does that mean like big banks of batteries kind of storage?
Well, there are so many different storage alternatives out there, and that has been one of the really interesting components of this storage proceeding, which is also run by Commissioner Peterman's office. She's very much on the cutting edge of storage and also EV, electric vehicle connections to the grid. There are one of the upcoming electric vehicle proceedings is going to be on her plate. She's also been running the current EV docket. But for purposes of storage, yes, I mean, it could be cited either at some of the resources that we have. It could be cited, customer cited. You could take a look at, it's a little bit too early to say, but, EV storage capabilities that could be developed. There's a pretty wide range, and so I think that as we're developing, we'll be reaching out to storage providers to see what can be offered. We're also already talking with Tesla. I don't know, Dawn, you want to chime in on any of our current?
Yeah, I'll make a comment, and Greg, you may also want to chime in. I know you're looking at some other things, but we have a pilot going with Tesla to identify customers that could benefit from shaving their peak usage during the hours of the day when there's a high demand. The battery storage pilot is also available to solar customers that just want to have a backup system in the case of an outage. So that's a really exciting program. We just had a meeting this week with Tesla, and we had about 8 different customers represented there in the meeting and participated to learn about the program and get informed and follow through if they're interested. So we're really excited about that. And I know that Greg's also been looking at some technologies that we might be able to incorporate on the procurement side of what we're doing. Do you want to say anything about that yet? Or?
There's some great incentives right now where these systems can be installed at no cost, and we as an agency actually get credit for any customer-sided systems as well. So even though we're not required to have a plan until 2020 to have it installed, we should probably have the 3 megawatts we're required within the next year or two, I would guess, just by funding that's out there in the industry.
And then the only sort of caveat there is the only thing that isn't applicable is pump storage, and the reason there is that it would basically dwarf the size of other new types of energy storage. So we're talking about sort of non-pump storage, energy storage opportunities.
What's pump storage?
Oh, that was discussed earlier in the meeting where you, on off hours, you pump water sort of up into a different reservoir,
right.
And then on peak hours, the water flows through and you're able to convert that back into energy.
No, I got that.
So sort of like the peak shaving type opportunities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you want to mention our Tuesday activities?
Would you like to mention our Tuesday activities?
Well, I mean, it was exciting for me. We had a meet and greet Tuesday with Commissioner Peterman of the California Public Utilities Commission, who actually traveled up to our offices at MEA and spent an entire afternoon with us to sit and learn about what we did. I had the pleasure of first interacting with Commissioner Peterman at the California Energy Commission. She was appointed there when I was working there before we came over here, and continue to be phenomenally impressed with her. She's young, but she's still pursuing her PhD. She's just incredibly smart, incredibly sharp, really grasps the issues more than most people I know in the market. So I don't know if you want to add anything, but
yeah, and I think this is really demonstrating how much she's reaching out to a wide range of folks in the market. She's also having meet and greets with each of the investor-owned utilities, and but it really demonstrated an interest and willingness to understand community choice aggregation issues, both in our context and more broadly. Commissioner Peterman is incredibly bright and motivated. She's really a get-it-done kind of person. She's very impressive. She has really pulled together a whip-smart team. She has done an incredible job of pulling together smart and engaged advisors. So we'll look forward to sort of seeing how, how things develop as things come out of her office. But it has been interesting, the energy storage proceeding came out of her office, and it was, CCAs were very thoughtfully considered in that overall structure, because the targets are really, they ended up being applied to all load serving entities. but there are greater opportunities for the investor-owned utilities to implement certain storage solutions, whether it's distribution sited or transmission sited, than CCAs would be able to. So there's a differentiation, demarcation there between what the targets are for CCAs and other load-serving entities and the investor-owned utilities. And it was the dates by which we need to meet our targets were also slightly different. So everybody has to meet their targets by 2020. Investor-owned utilities also have interim targets, and a lot of this really reflects on CCAs are much smaller, and so you don't know if you're going to be able to just bring one large storage component online and at what time. So there's a lot of thoughtfulness that was included in that proposed decision. So, you know, I personally am really looking forward to seeing her thrive as a commissioner. So she hasn't yet been confirmed, but I would expect that she would be, given her amazing progress. Are there other questions?
All right, thanks a lot, Beth. Okay, item 14, board member and staff matters. Pretty good of the order, seeing that. Adjourned.